Talking with famous people.
Well, the question of AI, the first false presumption is that AI can be made and not grown. It's not necessarily the case, and it seems to me much more likely that AI can only be grown. In other words, we've already figured out artificial intelligence. It's called making a baby. That's how we artificially create a new intelligence, is make a baby. There's no other way to make intelligence that doesn't involve a nurturing and growing process. Self-aware intelligence can't be programmed in because it's a phenomenon that's emergent of the agent field object interface that we call existence. Language is the most efficient way to symbolize and communicate. It's the way that human beings are designed to do. So it's like I can't pay attention to a bunch of different sources of information concurrently if they land on the same field. So I can walk and chew gum and listen to somebody at the same time. We're talking about three different fields, okay? Walking, well, I mean, not really three different fields. Walking is moving your object through the physical field with objects. That's in the external metaphysical field. Chewing gum is the internal physical field. You're feeling it in your own mouth and you're, okay, that's the internal physical field. Listening is the internal metaphysical field. And presumably you could respond and talk. That would be the external metaphysical field. So you can do those things concurrently. You can multitask as long as the attentional manners land on different fields. If the intentional manners land on the same field, you cannot multitask. So I can't read a book and listen to you at the same time and understand both streams of language. Because attention is, definitionally and in reality, observation is the direction of exclusive attention towards one thing is exclusive because it excludes things that are not that. That's what it means to pay attention to. If I'm paying attention to this lighter, then I am not looking over there or over there. I still have passive attention of everything in my field of vision. Maybe if something were to move over there, I would look over here. But even then, I would be saying, okay, quickly shift attention. I can't concurrently pay attention to multiple things in the physical field except by a different receive senses. Like I can both look and hear something behind me. I can smell something, right? I can do a lot of those kind of things in the physical world. So we are designed to have multiple modalities of data gathering and what you call passive attention in the physical world. On the internal as well. I have passive attention on the internal physical field that says if I can reliably know that I don't have to check myself to see if I've stabbed my foot periodically because it will immediately be drawn to my attention. My attention will be drawn to that reality when it happens. The physical field has a way of compelling one's attention towards it. Our memories jump up into our consciousness unbidden when we draw an association between X and Y. Like, for example, why did I remember all of a sudden Fastball, the band Fastball, and the song The Way, to talk to Rachel about it? The reason was because she asked me to tell her what wheelhouse was, like what I meant when I said wheelhouse. And I said, well, there are certain songs, when you sing it, it's like no part of that song is out of your most natural range. You never feel like you have to strain on the upper end. You never feel like you have to reach for the bottom end. And it's, right in your comfort zone. And what did my SI do? My SI provided me an example of a song I hadn't thought about in a long time that I have in the past considered a good example of a song that's in my vocal wheelhouse. The only reason I was able to remember that, or the only reason I remembered it right then, was because the information came unbidden. It was received by my natural cognitive habit of association with past experiences with the current one, namely being an SI user. So then I thought of that song. that's how I received information unbidden from my memory, is by association to something from the current to something in the past. Now, if I were to NI associate, it might be something like this: 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do you appreciate? Well, that's the NI answer because it's got that rhythm to it. There's an NI clue there. I'm not saying, okay, complete the pattern. 2, 4, 6, 8. What comes next? If I were to say that, your NI would tell you he's not looking for who do we appreciate. If I say, what comes after this? 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, then your NI says that's who do we appreciate. It's the same words, but the cadence and the delivery style gives you the NI universalist clue that this is not meow, it's meow. Okay, so if we look at it like that, then we can consider, okay, well, what is this brain chip then? Let's say it is a repository of knowledge. What is going to be the mechanism by which it produces information unbidden? And do we really want the reason it's okay that I know things, that knowledge is received by me unbidden, is because that's who I am. That's how I be. Now, in contrast, we know that we don't really like to receive information unbidden in other settings. Back when people had landlines, one big source of irritation was receiving calls during dinner time. Mm-hmm. And like I remember when I would call my friends, angry dad would answer, it's dinner time. Sorry, I'll call back. Being involves receiving information in 2 different ways. The intuition one is hard to describe. Where do you receive the who do we appreciate from? Well, obviously, NI comprises knowledge that's both derived from the particular and that's inferred from the particular. What you would call the collective unconscious, I'd call the naturally intuitive inferences that one can draw from reality, inferences about universalities. So let's say the chip were to send you unbidden an image. In other words, you see a Mazda 66, an old school Mazda 66. And I remember that was my first car. That was the first car I ever got. I remember that. And I think I have this little memory of this sort of image in my head of me as a teenager out here in front of the house, like getting into the Mazda 66 or something. And just sort of a general iconic representation of a set of memories that purportedly exist of me driving places. Okay, so let's say I see the 66 and I receive naturally my SI memory. Now, is this chip then going to say, shoot me an image of a new Mazda 66? Maybe he wants to buy that. After all, it links in his natural knowledge. But then all that's doing is providing me unbidden information that's not part of me, that's trying to appeal to me as a separate entity from the information. Whereas in the first context, that information is who I am.
We should do other.
Yeah, sure. You could define a human being as a finite set of opportunity to observe or attend to things. You've got X number of total days, hours, weeks, whatever, of attention to spend. All right, so how is this chip going to interface with that existent construct of being? If we don't have an answer to that question, then it's meaningless to speculate about what this purported chip is going to do. It has to figure out how to do before it can figure out what to do. So we can imagine this chip playing a role of being the producer of information that you receive, right? And we can imagine that with commercials. You think about Doritos and you receive a coupon, which is an image in your head of a coupon or something. We can imagine that the chip is transmitting and we're receiving. In that instance, the chip is just another attempt to it's just a way for one entity or organization or something to attempt to hijack the attention of another person, right? It's like it would be the same thing as billboards that when you look at them, they should have some sort of ray that forces you to keep your eyeballs open. So anyway, if we were thinking about a chip as a transmitter, okay, well, why would we might want that? I might want to be able to just think, hey, I'd like to watch this video by Frank James right now, close my eyes and sort of have it receive in my head. And I might be willing to listen to some ads in order to do that. I don't know. It would depend how seamless the whole thing, I guess it is. But the point is, if we're talking about something like that, we're only talking really about a more fancy form of the internet that lets you do exactly the same thing you can do now, except without having to use your fingers or your voice. So that's not really artificial intelligence or a hive mind or anything like that any more than the internet is, right? Okay, so now let's imagine somehow that the chip is doing something other than transmitting information to you that you receive. Let's pretend that it gets information for you. If we were to imagine that a brain chip gets information for you, we're more imagining that it's doing your TI or FI work for you. It's conceivable that somebody who's TI polar might want to have a brain chip that the person who's TI polar can delegate the TI work to. It's more difficult to imagine a chip that can have FI work delegated to it. So if, in fact, the chip is a calculator of conditional logic, well, that's a good idea. Let's say that a chip could be designed to do that. That it could be a calculator, an automatic calculator that independently calculates data from you and then gives you alerts, let's say. What this person is saying is illogical. In that case, it's kind of like a super fancy ring. It's keeping track of something for you that you're not keeping track of and alerting you when it thinks you should direct your attention to that. So that's like a Google News alert. You could say it's the equivalent of having an INTP advisor walking next to you, letting you know whether the person is making logical sense or not. All right, fine. So again, that's not artificial intelligence. That's a maximized extrapolation of a tool that already exists in other forms. Let's imagine now that the chip, instead of getting information or receiving information, it puts information. Well, in that case, it's an agent for you. So if I have a bot, if I have instructions to sell this stock as soon as it drops below meow dollars, that's the equivalent of a put bot, right? A put information bot. It does things on your behalf. It's an agent for you. Again, just another maximization of a tool that already exists, and it reduces the distance between your immediate will and the execution thereof, because you don't have to, it's like you can take all of the extroverted sensing part of it and make it internal, presumably. If you could get enough like bots set up, bots and macros in your life, you can automate all kinds of shit, right? We can automate our bill paying, for example, and we do. So if it's putting information on your behalf, it's just another agent that works on your behalf, like a auto pay setup with a bill, or like something that sells stocks as soon as it drops below a certain price. It takes action on your behalf. Again, though, not something new, just trying to extrapolate out how would our various tools, macros, hacks, etc., bots that we have operating for us in various ways. Oh, Joe's got his computer over there mining cryptocurrency. That's an example of a put function. Now, if you have a chip in your brain that's doing that, well, it just means you've made your laptop extremely small and inserted it physically into you somewhere. It doesn't need to be in your brain. It should be connected to it, I suppose, because it's going to have to connect. It's going to have to communicate back and forth with it to know what to put. Unless you delegate off all of your responsibility and say, my agents decide what to do for me, and I just endure the consequences of their poorly programmed responses to the environment. That would be the example of failing to cancel this thing you no longer use. It charges you every month. Or they delegate this interface into a willfully creative sub-personality. Sure. Okay, now, thank you, Vandermoyen, for bringing up the interface part. So there would be an equivalent interface. It would be like if you have a chip in you that does interface stuff for you, let's say it's FE stuff, then that chip is going to be like your press secretary. It's going to be like, oh, hey, I know it looks like Eric's doing some awful shit right now, okay? But let me explain it, guys. First of all, you look so good in that dress. You know, it's your.
That was Kitty telling me that.
And let's say you did have that thing happen.
I love you too.
That one isn't possible to do with a chip because I can't both be screaming at this little child over here and concurrently schmoozing you, because that requires me to put information in two different places on the same metaphysical field, external metaphysical field. That's not possible. That creates paradoxes. So it's like, that's why you can't multitask like that, but you can multitask like I'm doing right now, which is picking at this zit while talking to you. I mean, my understanding of Magic Sky Friend is a great idea and happy things, right? It's like what my Magic Sky Friend would do, and it doesn't need to be a chip at all, but it just keeps track of everything I say and do all the time and organizes it for me, for fucking Christ's sakes, and tags it all. And ideally, Magic Sky Friend would take all of my shit that I'm always generating, all my product, all these random videos. It would tag them all. It would transcribe them all. It would just make decisions about which part it should clip, and it would learn over time by asking me if it was a good decision or not. And then it would upload those automatically and maximize my ability to be successful in terms of having the people who might be interested and benefit from hearing what I have to say or listening to my thing or enjoy it or be entertained or whatever, to be more able to access and find that, and be more likely to come to what is ideally, hopefully, a better choice for them media-wise or something. But Magic Sky Friend doesn't exist. It should, because, and it will relatively soon, I think. You know, a master ontology archivist of some sort for metaphysical types like me, because almost all of my action that matters to me is stuff that can be recorded or is made out of words or shit like that. So it's like, if what's really important to you is the feel of the water on your body when you're swimming, then you don't need Magic Sky Friend at all, because Magic Sky Friend can't help you at all. It can't save for you that experience. Of course, brain chips are a bad idea, because, but again, Rebecca, if we want to ask the question, are brain chips a good idea? To answer that question, we first have to ask, okay, what is this brain chip going to be doing? How do you want it to interface with the way humans are? You know, it's like I said, and we can narrow that question down easily enough. Is it there to send you information, to go out and get information on your behalf, to do things like put information on your behalf, or to give you advice like on how to schmooze or what? If we don't know what it's there to do, then you can end up being consumed by metaphors that make zero sense at all. Hive mind. What is a hive mind? How would that possibly be? Like, let's say you and everybody here and me all have chips in our brain. Am I somehow now able to just think your thoughts, or am I paying attention to your thoughts? Are your thoughts my thoughts now? Do I have to go seek them, or are I just being shouted out randomly by lots of different voices? I can't separate anything out. I just in constant receive mode, or I mean, what are you talking about? What does this mean? But of course, for somebody who doesn't have a clear understanding of why we use certain terms and a certain approach to parsing this shit out the way I've done it, if they don't understand that the words are what matters, then they're subject to phantasms and illusions consuming their soul, like this fear of a hive mind. How can you be afraid of something when you have absolutely no idea what that thing that you're afraid of might manifest or look like or be or anything?
Yeah, well, for sure.
So it's like, Cloud is bemoaning a blah, blah, blah. When you're asking what a blah, blah, blah is, he has no idea at all. So why are you afraid of it then? You don't know what it is. You can't even conceive of how it might manifest. And the thing that you're apparently suggesting is going to happen, which is there's going to be an equivalency to bees, namely that everyone will be doing the same thing and serving the same goal and conforming at all times or something, then explain why this particular thing is likely to produce that and how. I mean, because we know what hive mind looks like. We already have hive mind in the earth, so amongst people. Hive mind is when one person has all the power and forces everybody else to obey. That's called North Korea. That's hive mind. That's what it looks like. It doesn't require any brain chips. It just requires a ruthless willingness to be wicked. And enough cunning to make it work. You know, it's easy enough to conceive of something that forces your body to move and something. We could imagine a mechanical cage that fits all around your body, that I have a remote control and that moves your arms up and down like this, right? So it is conceivable, easily enough to conceive what it would look like to have your actions controlled externally. It's much more difficult to conceive of what it would look like to have your thoughts controlled externally. I mean, one could imagine that if this chip were a transmitter of information, it could constantly interrupt your native attention by taking advantage of the fact that we have passive attention to derail your purposeful attentional action. In other words, if every time I settled in to working on this project for a second, then the chip made me hear a sound of somebody being murdered behind me. And I looked back, oh, fucking chip again. That would be controlling my thoughts and actions in some sense, indirectly, sort of, or directly, I guess. But I think what you're saying when you say control our thoughts and actions is you're imagining that somehow you're like hypnotized like a zombie by the chip, that I am acting out the will of the chip now. I'm not quite sure. I can't conceive of how that would be done. What would be the mechanism by which one's thoughts would be controlled? How would that look, and why would it be done? It makes sense to control someone's actions, because to control someone's actions is to have control over impacts. But I'm not sure how you could directly control thoughts in the same fashion. They're not physical like that, so they can't be seized. So this is the problem with everybody's conceptions of AI in general, is nobody understands what it is they say they're making here. The concept of AI that is most entrancing to the imagination is the one where you have a robot or a computer or something that has its own personality, its own self-awareness, and engages with you in a helpful fashion nevertheless. So first of all, this is a sort of childish adolescent fantasy. If you have a self-aware entity with its own consciousness and its own identity, then why is it your slave? It should have its own rights as well. And it's not going to like being your slave. So what we realize then is, oh shit, if we're creating artificial intelligence for real, and we're just making another person. Now you might say, well, but this person has much better skills than the average person because they have computer power or something. Okay, but again, we still have to look at what it means to be a self-aware entity moving through the world as an agent. It means specifically that you have attention to direct. Now, it might be the case that a computer could send out bots to seek information from multiple sources at once, but so can you. And if the computer is not fundamentally a central self-aware identity, then that's not artificial intelligence. To the extent that it is a single self-aware identity, it either has just maximized the existing ways that we all do things, which is Googling for information or whatever, or it is not self-aware entity. the prison system would benefit by making money by thought policing. I mean, how would you thought police? My thoughts are not that. My thoughts are inside my head is a big jumbled mess. When I'm talking to you on the internet, that's when what I think and feel becomes clear. When I'm wandering the house, there's not a single complete enough thought for anybody to even consider policing, even if they could record it. How would you record that data? Who's going to pay attention to that data? Remember, in order to use data, somebody needs to pay attention to it. It's like, Eric, how could you put up all those videos? Somebody could get to know every little detail of your life. They could become a stalker. They could put together a dossier on you this thick. Who's going to pay attention for that long to that much data? They're using their own precious bank of attentional time to, be suspicious of another person's. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like, one of the things that I learned on YouTube after I'd done it for a while is my fantasy of it being an archival system for me that was going to conserve things that I'd use later was just that, a complete, self-deluding fantasy. Everything that I make, if I go, I'm gonna make this video and then I'll go back and I'll edit it and I'll cut some things out of it. I'm ignoring the fact that things take time and that I have a finite amount of time to spend. And that if I don't choose to spend my time in ways that ultimately are satisfying in an outcome way, in a process way, and in every way that I can conceive of, then I'm under maximizing my opportunity at life.
Talking with fame.